Alright, hello guys, welcome to this video. So 2 days ago I learned that Capcom Vancouver was shutting down, and I want to first give all my condolences to everyone at the company. I hope all of you land on your feet. But let's talk about, why does this make me mad? Let me first tell you all about their history. Capcom Vancouver used to be called Blue Castle Games, and Capcom, they had let them make Dead Rising 2, as long as this DLC known as Case Zero and Case West. And before Dead Rising 2 came out, Capcom decided that they really liked the game before the public got their hands on it, and they decided to go ahead and purchase Blue Castle Games, and they rebranded them as what we know today as Capcom Vancouver. But now it's been 8 years since Capcom decided to buy Blue Castle and rebrand them, and 8 years later, Capcom is shutting them down. And this saddens me to the core. Dead Rising is one of my favorite franchises. Dead Rising 2 is my favorite game of the franchise, even though it's a very unpopular opinion. But according to all the reports, Dead Rising 5 and the other projects that Capcom Vancouver was working on have been cancelled. And this makes me just so mad to see such a great franchise and such a talented studio go down the drain for absolutely no comprehensible reason. Dead Rising 2, it was a relatively successful game. Looking here, it says it had 2.2 million copies reported being sold back in 2011, and I believe this is the most successful game in the franchise. Off the record, I can't Dead Rising 2, off the record, Capcom Vancouver made that after Dead Rising 2, and it's like, the game is about Frank, and it's basically a reimagining. It's not even canon, and I don't think it did very well financially, but because of the reasons I just said. It was a reimagining, and it's mostly the same assets, mostly the same game, except the Uranus zone off the top of my head. And I remember Adam, he was a boss battle. But how the series, it bounced back with Dead Rising 3 as a next generation console exclusive. Dead Rising 3 was very successful, especially given the circumstances surrounding it. It was a Xbox One exclusive, and at the time, Xbox One, well, they weren't really leading and doing that well whenever the Xbox One first released. This due to being a $500 price point, everyone being mad about E3 and always being online, and the emphasis on Connect and entertainment. And so the console, it wasn't nearly as successful as the PlayStation 4 or the 360 for that matter. Even though in its own relative terms it's really successful, but it still pales in comparison to the PS4. Yeah. But nonetheless, even though Dead Rising 3 had the exclusivity stacked against it, it still managed to sell 1.2 million copies. And that's no slouch considering all the factors. I mean, it's a million less than Dead Rising 2, yeah, but you just gotta look at the circumstances, considering it's an exclusive. The console had just came out, not many people had gotten it, so that's a pretty good number, and it was relatively successful. And since it was so successful, you think Capcom would go, wow, Dead Rising 3, at the time, it's the best selling Xbox One game, right? You think they'd go, hey, let's go all out, let's make a good Dead Rising 4. You think that, right? You'd be wrong, because Dead Rising 4 it wasn't that good. I was so excited for it. I get it day one. I think I beat it the day it came out because I think I stayed home from school. Yeah, I did beat it the game the day it came out. I didn't 100% it. I wanted to. I just didn't want to do all the blueprints. But it was supposed to be a return to roots for the series, with them bringing Frank West back and them going back to Wilmette, Colorado. But it was the exact opposite of a return to roots. It was very mediocre. It was just, it didn't feel like Dead Rising. I mean, they changed the voice actor. I don't know why they do that. If you're bringing Frank back, bring Frank back. The story, it was trash. There were so many plot holes. I remember it was like, there's a big thing about Dr. Barnaby. I'm not gonna spoil, but it was just such a plot hole, and it didn't make any sense. Like the whole, it was just not good. And then one of the most interesting parts about the whole Dead Rising franchise, from Dead Rising 1 to the DLC for 2 to 2 itself to Off the Record in 3, one of the most interesting parts was psychopaths. And then in Dead Rising 4, they removed psychopaths. It's like, this isn't Dead Rising at all. They did have some kind of replacement, but they're lame and they had no backstory, and it was just mediocre. And not to mention, it was marketed really, really, really bad. I remember E3, that being my most excited game in 2016, and I remember me and my friends were sitting there watching. I'm like, I'm so excited for Dead Rising 4. I'm sorry about that, that's my phone. I'm so excited for Dead Rising 4. And then the trailer comes on, and I'm like, yes, I've been waiting for this. And then, after the trailer ends, it just stops. They just move on. Nobody came out and talked about it, and I was like, wait, what? This is, Dead Rising 3, at the time, was the best-selling Xbox One game. And it was received very well, critically. And people really liked it. Why wouldn't you highly market the fourth one if it's a big deal? I don't understand. And but then of course we all played the game, and like I said before, it was just mediocre. It felt rushed. It was really simplified compared to the other games. It felt under-marketed, underfunded, and it honestly just felt like a cash grab. And the sales reflected all of that. And the game, Capcom, they predicted Dead Rising 4 to sell over 2 million copies. However, the game didn't even manage to sell 1 million copies. And that's just sad. And this is simply speculation, but I can't help but feel that falls on Capcom. I don't think they let Capcom Vancouver really put love and creativity and heart into the game like they did with Dead Rising 2 and Dead Rising 3. Dead Rising 4, it just felt like they were so central Capcom back in Japan. Just felt like they had their hands all over it. Just making them bring Frank back. Frank felt really forced. Being in Wilmette felt forced. I don't understand how, if it's Black Friday and a mall just opened, how no one around the world can realize that there's no contact from Wilmette. It just felt forced. And it just makes me so sad. Like, how can you expect, when the game is mediocre, it's not gonna get 9s or 10s? You know it's not gonna get 9s or 10s. You're barely marketing the game because it was marketed really bad. I have friends who didn't even know it was coming out. How do you expect that to sell 2 million copies and then be disappointed when it sells under 1 million when you didn't put love and effort into it like you did the previous 3? It just makes me sad. And after Dead Rising 4, after it was a financial failure, Capcom Vancouver, who was once great, they decided to release a free-to-play competitive puzzle game mobile title called Puzzle Fighter. And I don't think we have to look far from that story to see what happened. Dead Rising 4 is a cash grab, it failed. And Capcom went and they said, huh, Dead Rising 4 failed. Let's go make a mobile game and get some cash in, since our cash in of a great franchise just flopped because we didn't put a lot of support into it. And I think that just supports my theory that the central Capcom, they didn't really let Capcom Vancouver do whatever they wanted to do with Dead Rising 4, or even make a new IP, because the studio is talented enough. And I know new IPs cost a lot, but get them on another IP. Get them doing something they want. Don't force them to crank out a game they're not passionate about, because it's not going to be successful as it wasn't successful. And now the studio is shutting down. It just makes me mad, because the studio, they were so good. They had so much potential. They were a really good studio. They were good at making games. Dead Rising 2, Dead Rising 3, they were quality. I didn't like 3 as much as 2, but that was because of the story. But the gameplay was better. The graphics were good. The hordes were good. 4 had hordes, but 3s were better. They were good games. I don't understand why Capcom wouldn't just let Capcom Vancouver go all in on a game. I understand the business prospect. They didn't sell that well. Dead Rising 3 sold well, but it didn't sell as well as it could have. But that's because it was exclusive. If it wasn't exclusive, it probably would have sold way more. But that doesn't matter. It still sold well within its thing. And I get the business prospect that it underperformed, and Puzzle Fighter underperformed, since it's a mobile free-to-play game. I'm sure they didn't make all their money back on that. But I don't feel like the company was given the chance to make what they wanted to make after Dead Rising 3. And they didn't have good marketing, and I feel like Capcom just had their hands all over what Capcom Vancouver is doing, which is okay because they're the parent company of Capcom Vancouver. But you gotta let your developers do what you want to have, a certain amount of freedom the way the game is good. Or as you see, the game will not be good, and it won't sell well, and it's just sad, and it makes me mad that the company's shutting down. I don't feel like they got the chance to do what they wanted to do, and it's just sad. But that's all I have to say. I wish everyone at Capcom Vancouver the best. I hope you all land on your feet. Thanks everyone for watching this video. If you think I'm wrong in my opinion that Capcom Vancouver is shutting down is sad, or that Capcom Central in Japan had a lot of hands on this, then please comment and discuss with me. And I hope everyone has a good day.